Hello, everyone. I'm Dijon,
And I'm Aiara.
and welcome to the Mastercast, the podcast about the art of storytelling and how it's used across different mediums. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see our channel grow, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. As usual, we'll start with media we're consuming.
All right. Been playing a lot of Cult of the Lamb recently because a friend of mine bought it for me, and that was really fun. And I rewatched the first episode of Trigun 98 because me and my girlfriend did a drinking game for it, and we only got one episode in. It was fun though. Other than that, I haven't really been. I've been kind of in a media drought lately. I haven't had the time to do stuff like that.
So, for me, I've been reading Blood of Elves, which is the third Witcher book. But it's the first proper novel. The first two books are a collection of short stories. Um, it's real good so far. It starts out with a conversation about the meaning of one of Dandelion's songs between damn near an entire party worth of people. That drags on for far too long. It's a one area of this author's writing that can be a bit cumbersome to read. But once we got past that part, it got real good and got to the groove of writing that I enjoyed from this author. Um, Something that happens a lot in these the last two books, and in this book as well, is that I feel like the author brings up like woman's bodily autonomy as well as just like women's anatomy in general a lot, and it's in I mean that in a good way. Like in the second book, there's this great quote that I had highlighted where Geralt's talking about his mother. He's talking to the Queen of Sintra, and she's asking him, does he like resent his mother for abandoning him? And he's like, he's upset about it. Like he doesn't like it. And he's aware that he assumes that his mother is probably a witch, and witches in this universe essentially live long lives and have like extended like youth. So he's like, she probably looks like the same age as me, and he's like, I wouldn't take the choice away from her to do what she wants. And who knows what the circumstances for her having had him were, and him essentially just talking about how talking about like the freedom of choice and all that. And I was like, this author just really he's woke, as the people say. That he really has respect for women and their choices. And then was it in Blood of Elves? Ciri is staying with the Witchers, and Witchers are only men, so they just know nothing about women. So they invited one of their witch friends to come and help them out, and they just failed to realize that she was having her period. And the lady just had to tell them off and be like, "You guys are idiots." But yeah, I saw Evil Dead Rise a couple weeks ago. It was good, but I'll get to that later in the TV and film section. I watched a western directed by Sam Raimi called The Quick and the Dead. It was real good. It was about a quick draw competition, which I wasn't sure what it was about. I just knew I had saw somebody post this cool shot from it on Twitter. And I was like, let me check that out, and it was on Netflix. And yeah, it's about a quick draw competition that takes place in this town that's being governed by this outlaw. It was a very fun movie. I like westerns. Yesterday, I checked out Super Mario Bros. The 1993 movie. I'd seen a bit of it when I was a kid, and of course I've seen clips of it online. But this is my first time watching it fully through, and it's a good movie. It's just not a good Mario movie, but it's a fun movie. Have you ever seen it?
I've seen parts of it. I haven't had the chance to like sit down and watch it fully, but I've been meaning to because my mom grew up when it was coming out, and she said she enjoyed it. Just again, not as a Mario movie.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. It's just not a Mario movie. But when I watch it, I go, I can see how this movie could have been really fun. If a really fun Mario movie if they just leaned into the Mario stuff instead of all this OC stuff that they added, because it's like uh, um, I forget the name of the actor that plays Mario, but John I can't. It's hard to pronounce the name. Lou Quizziamo, who plays Luigi. He's good Luigi. The guy who plays Mario is good Mario. And I was like, these are good actors. They're doing a good job as the characters. It's just that it's not a Mario movie. It's weird,
Right.
and you can see where they pulled aspects from that movie into the current Mario movie.
Mm.
because they live in Brooklyn, they're plumbers, and they end up going to a different universe. But
Right.
in the '93 movie, they lean into the dinosaur thing a lot. Like they just ran with the fact that Yoshi is a dinosaur and that Bowser is like a turtle dragon, and really just leaned into the reptile thing and made like the Mushroom Kingdom this alternate universe where everybody's a reptile, or like
Mm.
the dinosaurs evolved to be more human like. It's weird. It's not a bad idea. It's just the execution wasn't great in terms of making it a Mario story specifically. But as its own thing, it's pretty fun.
Mm.
I feel like that's the thing with most adaptations. I feel the same thing about the live action Cowboy Bebop.
Mm.
It's an okay Cowboy Bebop adaptation, but as its own thing, I actually really like it.
Right.
And I low key want both the Mario movie. Granted, Bob Hopkins is his name, the guy who played Mario. He passed
Mm.
away in 2014. But if they were to like make another version of that movie that's its own thing and not trying to like be associated with Mario, I would not be mad. And also, like, I really want a season two of Cowboy Bebop that just continues the story, but it's not called Cowboy Bebop. It's just called something else. And they change everybody's names. They change the names of the planets and the world and the way the technology looks, and just make it its own thing. And like, don't explain it. Just it's technically the second season, but it's like a spiritual successor.
Got you.
I feel like that's
That
just
would
how.
be
Yeah, I feel like the like what is it like the Resident Evil movies? I feel like if
fun.
those weren't called Resident Evil, I would enjoy them more.
Mm. Mm.
Like that's how I feel like about most adaptations. Like if this was its own thing, like instead of when you make something and you realize it's so different from the thing it's based off of that it can be its own thing, just make it its own thing. Because I promise
Right.
you, it'll be much more successful if people aren't constantly comparing it to the thing it's meant to be based off of. But yeah, still watching Star Wars Rebels, making progress with that. Uh, also played Dead Island 2, which came out a few weeks ago, and Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which came out on Friday. Uh, and I finally rolled credits on Hades, and
Wow.
I heard in the blood the way it was meant to be as the credits rolled,
Mm.
Zagreus and his mom went back to Hades. So
It's about time. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, now I just
Yeah, that's
gotta go through
is
go through the end game and reunite the family.
man. I'm still going through the end game myself. I can't even judge you. I just got Eurydice and Orpheus back together.
Hmm.
Still have yet to encounter them in a run, but
Man, Orpheus be playing them jams, bro. I
no.
remember I walked out the pool of sticks and he was playing this song about like the history of the gods, and I was like, bruh, this song is fire.
It's like no wonder being kept as the real quartzman. Got skills.
But yeah, that's all I got in terms of what media I've been consuming. So I actually don't have anything for animation this week for some weird reason. It's probably because I haven't been watching Demon Slayer because for some reason it's not on Hulu. I need to check again. But usually Demon Slayer, it comes out on Hulu the same time it comes out on Crunchyroll. But for some
Mm.
reason it's just not on Hulu, so I haven't been watching Demon Slayer. So I might have to get Crunchyroll and both catch up on Demon Slayer as well as watch the entire season 9 of Ruby.
Mm.
And hell, I might try and catch up on One Piece while I'm at it, but we'll see. Um, so yeah, we're just gonna go to comics. Anything you've been reading?
Let me think. All the manga that I like is either like monthly or on hiatus because Hoseki no Kuni dropped a new chapter, but then the manga is on hiatus for another 3 months again. I wish the series would just end. Like at this point, I've stopped understanding it. The fan base has stopped understanding it. Whatever. Chainsaw Man updated like twice.
Yeah,
That was fun and cool,
yeah.
but
I didn't read the last chapter. I keep meaning to, and then every time I open the app, I end up doing something else.
I always forget until I see like posts about it, and I'm like, oh snap! Right, Chainsaw Man is a thing. It's after Tuesday. Um, Shadows House hasn't updated in a while. I've been meaning to start Berserk. I don't know what. There's this like blockade in my head that feels like once I start Berserk, it'll change me fundamentally as a person, and I don't think I'm
So,
ready for that. But
are you reading it like digitally somewhere, or are you gonna like get the like omnibuses?
I'm probably gonna read it digitally. The omnibuses scare me. Also, I don't have any shelf space for them.
That's fair. Uh, so I've been reading Apple Black. So I think I mentioned it before. I got the two new editions of Apple Black's Volume 1 and 2. I have the original, but the new editions essentially are printed by a different publisher and have additional content and essentially just, the creator, White Manga, just improving on, the manga. Uh, and, for those who don't know, Apple Black's, it's made by a company called Saturday AM, which White Manga is a co-founder of, which is essentially their tagline is the world's most diverse manga inspired comics, and essentially they're a diverse manga company that has people other than just Japanese people making manga, and it's fun. And I said before, we have a conversation about what's the difference between manga and a comic. Nothing in reality, but it's the same difference between French film and American film. French film is called French film because it has a very specific style of storytelling that's unique to the French people, and that's the same thing with manga and anime.
Right.
Anime is a cartoon, mangas are just comics, but there's specifically it's the style that of Japanese storytelling that makes it unique. But it isn't specific to just Japanese people. It can be recreated by people outside of Japan, and Saturday AM is an example of people outside of Japan making manga that is you read it you wouldn't know it's not made by a Japanese person.
Right.
But yeah, I'm just gonna read the back of the book just to give a quick descriptor of the series. So, uh, raised to be the world's savior, young sorcerer Asano ventures out to train with other talented magic users, just as evil emerges again to threaten the world. Many years ago, fruits called black turned humans into sorcerers. Blessed by Merlin, the god of sorcery, with the Erotis arm, the young sorcerer Sano has the ultimate wand. Sano gets a fiery start after being admitted to Black Bottom Island's Guild for Young Sorcerers. The treachery, betrayal, and evil that have plagued nearly all of Eden emerge again to threaten the world. Can Sano survive the threats on his young life? So yeah, it's been fun so far. I'm in the middle of the second volume. I really ran through it because I had to go to the clinic to get some blood work done, and I just brought both of the volumes with me. And while I was in a waiting room, I just tore through those books. And
Sounds interesting.
yeah, no, it was. I pre-ordered volumes 3 and 4. 4 comes out in like November, but 3 comes out the beginning of May, so I'll be getting that in a couple of days. Yeah, so I've also been reading Dark Knights of Steel, which has been updating very irregularly. So Dark Knights of Steel is like a medieval take on the DC universe where Superman's parents came with him to Earth and became like the rulers of a kingdom. And there's this thing in the comics where Kryptonians are vulnerable to magic. So in this universe, they play with that idea by having magic be outlawed within the Kryptonians' kingdom, and they essentially imprison anyone with magic, uh, who could potentially hurt them. And that puts them at odds with the Kingdom of Storms, which is led by Black Lightning, and is essentially full of people who use magic. It's very like Game of Thrones inspired, and it started strong. Towards the middle, I started losing interest, but then towards the latter half, which it's building up towards the conclusion, it's gotten really good, and some great twists and revelations have popped up. I'm gonna have to reread it from the beginning, honestly, because I feel like maybe because the schedule has been so irregular that's why I was losing interest, and maybe if I read it all together, I would probably enjoy a bit of those middle chapters a lot more. I think I was letting the opinions of people on Twitter cloud my judgment of it a little bit too much, and I'm just like, this is good. Why am I letting people tell me it's bad?
Right.
Uh, but yeah, still reading the DC Ruby crossover. Team Ruby goes to the Batcave and meet Alfred, Nightwing, Batgirl, and Catwoman. And look, there was another instance of Team Ruby just being written as annoying as they are in the show. Now, look, I like Ruby. I hate the trash talk it as much because I feel like the creators get enough flack as already because people on the internet suck. Ruby's great.
Right.
I'm gonna watch Volume 9 when I get a chance. It's just the fact it's on Crunchyroll makes it difficult for me. Um, but like, it was just honestly it was some bad writing in this very particular scene where Batman doesn't want to rely on these superpowers that he's developing because their worlds are merging. And Blake randomly accuses him, like randomly out of nowhere. Like there was no build up to this. This is the second issue. She accuses him of being afraid of relying on others, despite the fact that she just met two of his sidekicks and his girlfriend, who who they specifically mention where Batman's like, "How did you get in here?" And she says, "You gave me a key." He gave someone keys to the Batcave. He has two partners, and there's his butler, who's basically his father, and she's trying to claim that he's afraid of relying on others. I get what they were going for.
Right.
It was just poorly set up because they set up Batman as being a person who very clearly isn't afraid to ask for help, and then have a character call him out for something that isn't set up. It was just a strange stint of writing.
Sounds like it.
But yeah, Radiant Pink was the last thing I read. I actually read it right before we recorded. Radiant Pink is stranded on an unknown planet with an EMT and a giant alien cat. So, Ava, who's Radiant Pink, is a streamer using her identity as Radiant Pink to boost her views, but at the cost of having to try and be in two places at once, seeing because her identity is a secret. On a visit to a children's hospital, there's an explosion, and she's using her ability to create portals to save the children, and then her powers start freaking out, and she ends up stranded on a planet with this EMT. Um, so yeah, moving on to TV and film. There was a teaser for a new Godzilla and King Kong movie called The New Empire. The teaser shows a new Titan in silhouette and a brief glimpse of their eyes, and they look like an orangutan. I really enjoyed the legendary Godzilla and Kong films. They're just really dumb fun kaiju movies. And in movies like this, the worst part is just the people. Like, I don't care about these people. Show me the giant monsters. Like, what was that meme from I think it's from Kung Fu Panda when he just goes monkey. just, just show me the monkey and the giant lizard, okay?
I saw a lot of discourse on Twitter when they first dropped that when they first dropped the teaser, um, about like if that's the main villain, then it'll be so easy to stop that. And I'm like, why do y'all care so much? I want to see the monkey and the lizard fight, and that's what matters to me. Like,
Yeah. But yeah, speaking of dumb fun action, Transformers: Rise of the Beast. I sent you that trailer. Did you check it out?
I did.
Yeah. So Bumblebee was pretty good, which is they're kind of like doing a soft reboot of the Transformers live action universe. Um, they've changed the design of the Transformers to be closer to their like OG cartoon designs, which I think they look really good. And this movie takes place in 1997, and essentially Unicron, which is this big planet-sized transformer, is coming to Earth to eat the planet. He essentially is like Galactus from Marvel, if you know who that is.
I do actually.
And yeah, yeah, the what do you call it? Autobots are working with the it's interesting. They're bringing in the Beast Transformers from like the Transformers Beast cartoon from like the '90s, which was like was this like really early CG cartoon, so it was really bad CG, and it's strange, but it looks fun. I'll probably see it in theaters. I like Transformers. The Witcher season 3 had a trailer, and it's gonna be shown in two parts. Volume 1 is premiering June 29th, and Volume 2 is July 27th. This will be Henry Cavill's last season. It's assumed that he left because the writers don't respect the source material. And Henry Cavill is a big nerd and a stickler for not changing too much, and he's just not. And like, I don't know, based on a lot of like rumors and reports, that the people working on the show like damn near hate the books, and I'm like, why are you making a show based off? I mean, I guess money, but like, come on, respect the books.
Right.
And I'm reading the books. The books are good. I'm reading the books because of the show. I'm not a big fan of the game. It's just not my style. But the show's good, and I'm really liking the books. And I want them to just continue to respect the books. And so far, they've been doing a good job of adapting it and making some changes to it every now and again. Like where I'm at in the book currently, is essentially where the second season started off,
Mhm.
and there are enough changes between the two that they're both their own unique experiences, and I like that. Like, I don't want them to necessarily do a beat for beat adaptation because it makes it more fun for me while I read the books that they're damn near completely different.
Right.
But yeah, it's a fun show. I'm not sure what they're gonna do after this though. They have I'm not sure if he's playing Geralt, but it's like one of the Hemsworth brothers. So the guy who plays Thor, Chris Hemsworth, one of his brothers, is playing. I'm not sure if he's playing Geralt or he's just playing a different Witcher. Actually, I'm not sure, but he's gonna be in the fourth season. So who knows what they're gonna do with the show after Henry Cavill leaves.
Oh yeah.
But Evil Dead Rise. So I watched it a couple weeks ago, and I heard someone somewhere, I think it was on like a podcast or something, describe it as a sick movie for sick people, and they're not wrong. Um, it is deliciously disgusting, and I think just the fact that I uttered that sentence proves their point. Like we've discussed before when we were like viewing trailers of it, in terms of visuals and like practical effects, this is what the original Evil Dead would look like if it was made today.
Right.
Alyssa Sutherland, who plays the main like Deadite, does an amazing job. It's crazy to see her switch from a loving mother to this demon possessed person. It's such a good movie. It's real good.
Watch it.
I definitely want to watch it again at some point. Probably gonna wait till it's streaming.
Mm.
But yeah, wow, we're only 22 minutes in. That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of notes. I don't have much. Well, I'll say that, but I actually have a lot of notes in the video game section. So this might take up the next 30 minutes. So moving on to video games, we're gonna start off with the Xbox attempted acquisition of Activision Blizzard. It might not be happening after all.
Oh wow.
So Xbox's $69 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard might not go through. So the acquisition seemed like a sure deal, with PlayStation making poor cases on the side of like console competition. Like their arguments sucked. So the I forget what the group of people like dealing with this is called, but they just threw that argument to the side. But what has caught Xbox up and is kind of surprising is the fact that they would have a monopoly on cloud gaming. Xbox already has a monopoly on cloud gaming. They have over 60% of the cloud gaming market share. And this acquisition would undoubtedly increase that percentage exponentially, like significantly. And
Right.
they would become an even bigger monopoly. So naturally, Xbox is appealing this. And that this may have only delayed the inevitable for about 6 months. But based on the fact that I don't know if there's anything they can do to necessarily change the fact that they would have that monopoly. I don't think it's going to go through. I think that it's done. And if PlayStation plays their cards right and actually formulates a proper argument, we could have this thing shut down. And I know some people might be like, oh, you're a PlayStation fanboy. This is about console wars. And it's not. If PlayStation was trying to buy Activision Blizzard, I would also be upset. There should not be monopolies ever in any industry. The fact that Disney bought Fox is ridiculous. Like this shouldn't happen, and seemingly it won't. Hopefully, so yeah.
Yeah.
Anything to say before I move on?
I guess circling back to the Disney thing, like monopolies are what cause like Disney to be beefing with the actual literal government of Florida right now. Like, I don't. It's like I don't know. That's all I had to say.
It's also what causes laziness and lack of creativity.
That too.
Because when there's nobody to compete with, they don't feel the need to go as hard.
Right.
Armored Core 6. There was a gameplay reveal. Did you see that trailer?
I don't think so.
So this is a game being made by FromSoft, which is the same studio that makes I almost called it Dead Souls, Demon Souls, and Dark Souls, and Bloodborne and Sekiro. And it releases August 25th, which is much sooner than a lot of people are predicting. It was announced with like a CG trailer in the Game Awards late last year. So it's apparently been in development since 2018, and it's a brand new story with no link to the previous games, despite being called Armored Core 6. Um,
Interesting.
so new players can just jump in. Um, the story revolves around corporations racing to gain access to an alien substance while facing resistance from the indigenous forces of the planet, which is called Rubicon. And the full title of the game is Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. Um, so yeah, you play as a mercenary thrust in the middle of this war. It's the combat is essentially like I don't know if you've like seen like mech games like gameplay. It's like a dynamic 3D action. You can fly, you can dash, you can strafe while using multiple weapon systems at once. There's some melee combat that in a video I watched where someone was interviewing one of the producers in the previous Armored Core games, the melee system wasn't very robust, but they're putting in work to add more melee, but it's still primarily like a third person shooter where you're playing as this giant mech fighting other giant mechs.
Gotcha.
And it looks fun. It looks cool. I hope to hear that it's good, and it might be a game that I try out later this year.
Hmm.
Street Fighter Six had a an event hosted by Lil Wayne of all people, um,
Interesting.
and it was showing off their story mode, the World Tour mode, which is I'm sorry, I phrased that so weird because in my notes I say which is the single player campaign, but I started off by saying it's the story mode, so that just threw me off. But yeah, they showed off World Tour mode, which is their single player campaign. In it, you play as a created character and you explore Metro City, which is essentially like their version of New York. And you go around fighting people on the street and learning from various like actual Street Fighter characters and learning their moves and incorporating their moves into your move set. And yeah, it's very reminiscent of the Def Jam games story mode. If you ever seen any of those or played any of them, uh,
Yeah. It's also kind of similar to the what is it? What chapter of Live Alive? I think not the distant future, the near. I forgot what it's called, but there's a chapter in Live Alive, that one Square Enix RPG that plays exactly like that. It's just way shorter. That sounds interesting.
yeah. They also released a demo for the mode, and I made a creative character that's gonna like transfer over when I buy the full game. But I didn't want to play the demo because I kind of want to just experience that when the game actually comes out. If it was like the online demo, I wouldn't be fine. Like I've been in one of the other betas where it was only the multiplayer, and it's fun. I'm excited for that game. Yeah, they showed off some interesting accessibility features that I've never seen or even thought of. And so there are sound indicators for how close you are to an opponent for people who have a hard time seeing, and
Wow.
also specific sound indications for what type of attack you do, whether it's a high, a low, or mid, or like a sweep, or like if it's a cross up and things like that, which is very interesting. I never thought about how accessibility worked in fighting games specifically.
Yeah. That's honestly like really refreshing to see.
Yeah, every day we see more and more games, highlight their accessibility features. During the lead up to the game releasing.
Yeah. Love to see it.
Uh, but yeah, Zelda. There have been some previews. People have gotten hands on. Uh, so are you okay with talking about these previews? I'm not sure if you want to go in completely fresh or
I'm not really a person who cares about that kind of stuff. I
okay.
will say I did say someone got a preview copy on Twitter. They were like, "I got Tears of the Kingdom early, yada yada yada," and someone quote retweeted it and was like, "Nintendo is about to be up in your house like Hotline Miami," and that made me laugh.
Shigeru Miyamoto is across the street with a sniper rifle.
No, for real.
But yeah, the previews make the game look real good. So there's no story details. It was mostly just gameplay. So I'm gonna start off with these Zonai gumball machines that drop capsules full of like building parts, like the fans and rockets and stuff that we see in the trailers. Um, and they also drop cooking pots, which can now be carried in your inventory so that you can cook anywhere instead of having to find a pot in specific places strewn throughout the
Oh,
map.
that is like that instantly makes the game a 10 out of 10 for me because I one of my biggest pet peeves with Breath of the Wild was like I'm low on healing items, but the nearest pot is a whole town away from where I am. What am I to do? I hated it. It was so annoying. So that I'm glad that that's a thing.
Yeah, but they're one use, so you have to have multiple pots if you want to cook multiple meals.
I'm all right with that.
But speaking of which, there is now a recipe book where the recipes are stored after you make them. So after you make a
Oh,
recipe, instead of having to like either try to recreate it off memory or rely on the internet, there's an actual recipe book in the game that saves the different recipes that you've learned.
that's awesome.
So in a lot of trailers, we see these like big metal kind of rectangular prism block like structures on top
Mhm.
of the sky islands. They finally showed us what they're used for, and they are essentially used for traversing the islands. You attach rockets or like fans to them, and they can float or fly. But they they don't they aren't affected by gravity. So they float up to a certain point and then they stop and they don't fall. So you could use it to get up high and then glide down to an island next to it and stuff like that. It's basically just used to help you traverse the islands.
Hmm.
So there's a mysterious new ability that I kept seeing in the trailers, in the previews, and one person mentioned how they aren't allowed to talk about it. But having watched several previews, there was one preview by IGN where don't they were real clever about it. They didn't mention like the icon or like the fact that it's mysterious and they can't talk about it. They just said a specific thing that they could do in the preview
Mhm.
without like saying
Same.
like really saying what it was, and essentially gave away what that like ability was that they weren't necessarily supposed to tell us. And essentially what it does is it allows you to essentially save creations that you make, and
Hmm.
as long as you have the materials in your inventory, rebuild them automatically, I guess. Like they weren't allowed to show what it was, and they weren't really even supposed to tell us what it does. But it's the symbol looks like three purple hands, like two hands pointing up and one pointing down. And essentially, I assume like you create some flying machine, you save that design, and then if you have those parts in your menu or in front of you, you can just recreate it instantly. That way, you don't have to keep hand making them every single time. So just
Dope.
yeah, basically just a convenience feature, similar to
Nice.
the kind of quality of life thing they're doing with the cooking pot.
Mhm.
Um, there was a bit of a hint that the Sheikah Towers, the new Sheikah Towers, will be one of the many ways you're able to reach the Sky Islands. Because in the preview by Zeltic, he says that their goal was to get through this camp, which was guarding the Sheikah Tower, and then he says that he got to the Sky Island, but he doesn't say how, and I assume it was by the Sheikah Tower.
Right.
We also saw what it looks like when you attach blades to swords. So, we know we can fuse stuff, and we saw them fuse a stick to a pitchfork and make a super long pitchfork.
Mhm.
But you're probably wondering like, okay, like the when you defeat different enemies, they drop like like pitchfork, like not pitchforks, but like the tips of tridents and pitchforks and swords and like scythes that you can attach to sticks or stuff like that, or like axes.
Right.
They drop blades, but they don't drop like sticks. So
Mhm.
you're probably wondering like when you attach a blade to a sword, what does that look like? So they showed it, and it literally just it doesn't like stick on top of it like the like spear does. It
Mhm.
actually fully replaces the blade with a new blade.
Oh, that's cool.
So there was one of these like the Phoenix Zonai soldier or whatever, and they dropped a horn, and they picked up the horn, and horn was this kind of like snake like those type of blades that like have like a snake like shape,
Mhm.
and he picked it up and fused it, and it fully replaced the blade. And yeah, so that's what it's gonna be like when you replace blades and swords, or excuse me, fuse blades with swords. It fully replaces the blade and essentially makes it a new sword. It doesn't make the sword longer.
Hmm.
So yeah, that is a way for like people. Some people aren't a big fan of the fact that weapons have durability, but what you can do is you can also unfuse stuff. That was revealed in
Oh,
this. We know
that's
that you can
huge.
fuse things, but it makes sense that you can unfuse things. And it's been fully revealed in these previews. So what you can do is you can have something get to the point of almost breaking, and just fuse it with something, and then it'll essentially kind of fix it. And you could just do that over and over again. Like take a blade, like it's about to break, fuse another blade to it, and like I said, it just replaces the blade. And you could just keep doing that, and you infinitely have a sword that doesn't break.
Oh wow.
But something I think they should add is the ability to like a weapon's breaking, you switch to a different weapon, and you save that weapon, and you like go somewhere and have it fixed. I
Mm.
think that would be a cool mechanic to be able to actually go to like a blacksmith or something and have them fix your weapons.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got in terms of the previews. Anything interesting you saw in the previews you want to talk about, or just any thoughts?
I'm just excited. And excited for the. I hope that with the Tears of the Kingdom Switch, it's not the Animal Crossing New Horizons Switch situation where everybody and their mother suddenly decides on launch day that they want one and make it like make me have to go through hell and high water to get one because I really want one. That's it. That's all I've got.
Yeah, I'm gonna be getting that Tears of Kingdom Switch 2 or whatever they call it. But it's gonna be hard. But I'm gonna play Breath of the Wild before Tears of the Kingdom. It's gonna happen. I've committed. But yeah, I thought we didn't like. I was like, man, I don't have enough notes. This is gonna go to an hour. I lied, because my notes on Jedi Survivor, I wrote them this morning. They're extensive.
Oh
Um,
boy.
but we're gonna start with Dead Island 2 actually, because I played two new games recently. I beat Dead Island 2 literally like the night before I started playing Jedi Survivor. I was playing co-op with my little brother. I beat the original Dead Island. I don't know if I said that last week. Me and my brother finished that up, and I started playing the DLC for the first Dead Island, and you can tell that they were making improvements even in the DLC. But yeah, it was fun, but it's old. The original came
Wow.
out in like what 2009, and then the DLC came out like 2013. Um, so yeah, Dead Island 2 is it's an improvement on the original in every way. It's very fun. It's been getting a lot of like 7 out of 10s, which I rate out of 5, so I would say a 7 out of 10 is probably around like a 3 out of 5 in my opinion. And for most, I think that means okay, not necessarily bad, not necessarily good. But for me, it's easily a 4 out of 5. Um, so a lot of the reviewers who are playing this have played the last two Dying Light games, which are, if you didn't know this, are made by the original developers of Dead Island. Um, and to them, it's underwhelming because they played Dying Light 1 and 2. But for me, who is coming directly off the original game, which is 10 years old at this point, it's great. I love the game. It's Dying Light franchise doesn't really interest me that much, so this is great to me. Especially in co-op, it's really fun. Yeah, for those who don't know, this game was in development hell for 10 years. It was announced in 2013, and then it just on and off again has been shown, throughout the decade, and now it's finally released. And I
Yay!
think the fact that it was released, let alone that it's in such a good state, like a genuinely fun game, is a miracle in of itself. Um, it's a first-person melee game where you collect weapons of varying levels that affect their damage, special effects, and durability. You can also add upgrades that make them electrified, spew acid, or light enemies on fire. And the heavy weapons like hammers are my favorite. I just like they do a lot of damage and they're good at crowd control, and I just like slapping zombies and sending them flying. I have this upgrade where like you hit like when you do like a critical hit, it essentially hits them and it explodes. It's great. Um, yeah, it employs like a map structure that a lot of games have been using lately, and I see most in like God of War, which is some people call wide linear, which means there are areas that are relatively open in between a bunch of more linear and corridor like sections. Yeah, it was honestly like the perfect length for me to finish it up before Survivor came out. It's under 20 hours, so I could finish it before Survivor. And honestly, I would have finished it sooner, but I had to work around, of course, my work schedule as well as just my brother's schedule. So yeah, real fun game. I would definitely highly suggest it if you're looking for just a fun hack and slash and zombie game.
Nice.
It also doesn't take itself as seriously as Dying Light. It's much more comedic, and I like that.
That's
And after playing this game, I'm really just I think it's gonna do well. I hope it does well. And if it does, I really want a third game. I really want to see what this team would do with the third game, and how they can just improve upon what they've already improved upon.
hmm.
But yeah, moving on to the last thing we got. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Released the Friday before we're recording this. This game is amazing and has me saying I love Star Wars every hour. It's so good. It is a marked improvement over the last game, and I'm mad that I'm not playing it right now. I had work to do this morning, and on some online courses I'm taking, and
Mm,
I thought it was going to take longer than it did, but it didn't. Thank God, I was able to get it done before we started recording,
that's dope.
and I was so happy. I was like, yes! After the podcast, I could immediately start playing Star Wars. Uh, yeah, so I like to watch reviews for games before I pre-order them. Just to be sure. Got burned by Cyberpunk. Um, and the GameSpot review sucked ass. So they spoiled so much.
Oh no.
They literally outline the entire plot. Now they don't go into too specific a detail, so they don't fully spoil it, but they spoil it, and it sucks. Luckily, I immediately forgot everything, mostly by brute force, because I was so mad. I went into the comments to see if other people were upset, and everybody's like, "Bruh, you're ruining it. You're spoiling everything." And I was so upset watching that game. So I review every other review, like towed around the story, like a review that comes out before the game comes out should. But GameSpot, you could tell that they genuinely didn't like. You can tell they genuinely don't think they're spoiling it. That they think that they're just giving a review. But you're not, bro. You were just spoiling it. You just spoiled the game. You just outlined the entire plot, and I didn't realize that they were spoiling it until it was too late.
Mm,
But luckily, I barely remember anything. Um, but yeah, unlike GameSpot, I'm not going to spoil it. So the story follows Cal Kestis as he continues to fight the Empire after his crew splits up to pursue their own goals. Along his journey, he discovers a place hidden from the Empire where him and his crew could live peacefully. But he's not sure if he should leave the fight because the fight is all that he knows. Um, so no, I'll just say that the villains are very run of the mill in a lot of ways, but are still very fun, and I'm interested to learn more about them because I don't even know how far I am into the game at this point. Yeah, the gameplay is very Soulsborne inspired. With there are points on the map where you can rest, save your progress. Excuse me, progress. You can upgrade there. You can change your lightsaber stances, and enemies respawn if you choose to restore your health at the rest point.
oh wow.
These meditation points, as they're called, can also be used to fast travel between other meditation points. Speaking of fast travel, Survivor also includes a wide linear map style, where there are several semi-open areas among a bunch of more linear levels. The combat is real fun and satisfying. Also, heavily inspired by this entire game. In terms, it essentially was always kind of, described as Star Wars if it was made by the Dark Souls developers. It's it's difficult in a lot of ways, and it rewards patience and carefully watching your opponents and learning their patterns. Um, I'm playing on Jedi Master, which is the second hardest difficulty, but it doesn't feel too difficult. I'm sorry, it doesn't feel too difficult. There have been a few challenging bosses, but I feel like after you learn their pattern, you tend to just breeze by them. Except for the Rancor. Rancor sucks, but I did beat it eventually. Um, there are actually 5 different lightsaber stances. In the first game, there were only 2, so they added 3 more.
Oh wow.
And you start with 3. So in the first game, you have single lightsaber stance, and then you have the double-sided, double-bladed lightsaber stance. And then there's a specific attack you can do where he breaks apart them and uses them, like dual wield. But that
Oh
wasn't
wow.
that wasn't an individual stance. He could only do that for one specific attack. But now it is an individual stance where you can do a single lightsaber, you can do a double-sided lightsaber, or you could break them apart and use 2 lightsabers and dual wield them.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then the 2 additional stances are a blaster stance, where you use a single lightsaber alongside a blaster, and then there's a crossguard stance, which is essentially like a heavy damage stance, where the lightsaber, he essentially is using it like it's a little bit heavier and it has a crossguard, and he uses it like a broadsword. The blaster stance, of course, has a gun. Uh, the double sided is good for dealing with groups of enemies, and the single blade is your just well balanced, basic, lightsaber stance, and then Dual wield, which I've been using the most, is essentially the fastest with the best parry.
Mm.
Yeah, the combat's real fun. Lightsaber customization returns. In the last game, you could customize your lightsaber, switching out different parts, and changing their colors to suit your aesthetics, as well as changing the color of the blade to everything but red. Um,
Of course.
like what is it? There's pink, orange, yellow, green, blue, white, cyan, um, but not red because you're a Jedi. But they've expanded customization as well. You can customize your droid that follows you around BD1, who's with you the entire game, and you can also customize Cal in a way that you can't normally customize characters in. I feel like a single player game where you're playing as one character, unless it's a game like I don't know GTA or like Red Dead Redemption. You can change his hair, you can change his beard, you can change his top and his bottoms. It's an amount of customization I think nobody expected or necessarily wanted, but we aren't mad that it's there because it's honestly really fun. You can give this man a handlebar mustache and a mullet if you want to,
That is insane,
and he
but I
will
love
and he will have a handlebar mustache and a mullet in the cutscenes. So I currently have him wearing his default haircut with a full beard, a cape, and armor. I just made him look like a superhero.
it. Real.
Uh, yeah, this game was a 148 gigabyte download.
Yikes.
Easily the biggest game I ever downloaded. But let me tell you, when it's like after I watched the reviews on Wednesday, and I was like, okay, time to pre-order it and download it, and it's at 148 gigabytes. I was like, I'm sorry, excuse me. And
How much?
I immediately texted Amir and was like, bruh, you're gonna have to delete like 5 games. And he hit me back and was like, yeah, I know, I already did. Yeah, luckily I have a 2 terabyte internal SSD and a external um, HDD that I put all my PS4 games on, so I have space. Um, but if more games this big keep coming out, I ain't gonna have much space for longer.
Oh, for real.
And that SDD wasn't cheap. If I get a new one soon, that's gonna be trash. But I don't think I will. I don't know. It depends on how big Spider Man is. Spider Man better not be like 140 gigabytes. um,
It's all like character customization. That's where all them gigs are going.
but yeah, I mean, you can kind of tell where the gigabytes are going. You know, the open areas are huge. They're detailed. The set pieces are incredible. However, similar to the first game, Survivor has released with some hefty bugs. Um,
Yikes.
Visual glitches, texture pop in on a regular basis. Like it's textures popping in all over the place. Uh, what is it? Frame rate slows down even on performance mode. It's weird,
Mm.
and I've had it crash I think twice. And as bad as all that sounds, it has not ruined my experience. I am still loving this game.
What?
Like the pop in, I kind of just get used to it, and the frame rate stutter. I don't know, man. I'm not the biggest frame rate person. I feel like I don't notice the difference in frame rates unless it like significantly slows down, like it is doing in the game currently, occasionally. But it doesn't happen too like often enough to like really annoy me. But I do have it on performance mode, so that the frame rate is at 60, and the the visual fidelity is I think 1440p.
Mm.
Uh, I did try out the I forget what the other mode is called, but you know the mode that is basically for graphics, and I don't know. I just prefer performance mode. But yeah, it's a fun game. None of these things have really dampened my experience. I'm having a good time, and now it's like that episode me and Amir are gonna record has turned from just being about Star Wars Celebration to we're gonna talk about Star Wars Celebration. We're gonna talk about Mandalorian season 3. We're gonna talk about the Bad
Mm.
Batch season 2. We're gonna talk about Star Wars Vision season 2, and we're gonna talk about Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And he also read the novel that takes place in between the first game and the second game. So we're gonna be talking about. It's just gonna be a Star Wars episode.
Yay!
So yeah, it's gonna be great whenever we get a chance to do that. Hopefully, we might end up recording that on May the 4th.
Nice. That would be amazing.
So that'd be dope. That's all I got. Anything you got to say about
I have
Star
one
Wars?
thing.
Yeah.
That's not about Star Wars. This is another game that's releasing. Blasphemous, the hack and slash esque platformer. with a lot of religious imagery and some of the most gorgeous pixel art I've ever seen, is getting a sequel.
Yeah,
And
I saw
to
that.
say I'm excited is an understatement.
See, I'm
Love
mad.
Black.
I'm mad I didn't check out the trailer because I meant to check out the trailer a while ago and I just never got around to it.
Check out the trailer. It is gorgeous.
Okay, you
I
know
haven't
what?
finished
I'm
one,
gonna, I'm gonna watch
but
I'm gonna watch the trailer right now and we're gonna talk about it
yeah,
before we
yeah.
wrap up because we still got 10 minutes left before we hit an hour. So
This game looks fantastic. I haven't finished Blasphemous 1. The game is hard. The game is really hard. So I'm like, I haven't been able to like sit down, but this is the kick in the pants that I needed to go and finish Blasphemous 1 because Blasphemous 2 looks like it's going to be fantastic. I'm so excited.
okay, let me check out the trailer real quick.
Bet.
That looks
Right.
incredible. It makes me
I
want to.
know.
It makes me want to play the first one now because I'm about to check out a review for the first one, see how
No,
good that
please do.
is, and
'Cause,
and play that
uh,
because it looks like Castlevania. It looks real fun. You said it's a Metroidvania.
mhm.
Oh man, that looks good. The pixel
I
art.
it's fantastic, isn't it? Like I enjoy the hell out of Blasphemous mostly because of the art. Like even if the game like sucked absolute ass, I would still like enjoy it just because of the art. And also the lore of the universe, like of Custodia, is it's so insane, but like insane in all the best ways. And that's another big reason why I'm excited for Blasphemous 2 because it's going to expand on the lore. I want to know more about this crazy and insane world.
Yeah, like I think that the the way that this game's look and I look at it and I do think of Dark Souls and I think that leads credence to the fact that Dark Souls is a 3D Castlevania game. It is what a 3D Castlevania game should be, and Konami needs to like just either get those developers to make a 3D Castlevania game or have one of their internal teams make a 3D Castlevania game that's inspired by Dark Souls.
No, for real.
But yeah, that game looks so good. What was the release date? I didn't see it.
And myself. Whenever it's released and I'm buying it, that's
Yeah,
the point blank period.
it
Like,
that looks good. I'm definitely about to check out that review for the first game after this, and might check out some gameplay to see if I'll be into it. But I got a lot of games in my backlog, so I don't want to like I have what is it, Castlevania Rondo of the Blood and Symphony of the Night in my backlog right now.
right, of course, of course.
So I got to play those too. But yeah, that looks good. Everything about that is just it's like how Returnal is a game that doesn't interest me that much, mostly because it's a roguelike and roguelike works for me with Hades, but in a 3D action game, I don't know if I want a roguelike in that type of setting. But
Right, that's real.
but it looks like what a 3D like a third person shooter Metroid could be. And I'm like, bruh, if that studio or another studio were to take inspiration from it and make a 3D Metroid like that, oh, it would be so good. Like looking at this, all I can think about is, ooh, what if they made a Castlevania or somebody made a Castlevania inspired by it? It would be so great. But yeah,
Man, that's all I got though.
yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad you brought that up. That looks real cool. Check out the trailer for Blasphemous 2. It will make you excited for that game, even if you know nothing about it. Because I just saw
Oh yeah.
that and it looks fun. Um, and it makes me think of I said it before, but I want and maybe I will just have to do this myself. But I want there to be I want a cartoon that is a side scroller, like a 2D pixel side scroller, but that's the show, and the characters go up and they talk to each other, and similar to those type of games, or like in Hades, like how a picture of the character comes up and it's not in pixel art, and there's a text box and there's a person voicing over it. I want a TV show that's like that, like that's the show.
You might have to take matters in your own hands
I'm gonna
with
have to
that.
take it as my hands because I feel like that's such a good idea for a cartoon, for it to be set up like a video game, but it's not a video game; it's just a show. Yeah.
Man.
But yeah, that looked great. But yeah, that's all I got as well. You know, my ads are below me. Find Aiara's at below them. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more storytelling content, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. Peace.